for mega mergers, record passenger traffic and new challenges in 2025 amid supply chain woes. India's telecom sector sees 33 lakh subscriber decline in the month of October this year. Broadband dips while wired connections grow. India secures a $500 million loan from the Asian Development Bank for green and sustainable infrastructure projects aligned with climate commitments. In other corporate news, Kalyani Investment company settles SEBI case over disclosure violations, pays 1.12 crore rupees settlement fee. Employee Provident Fund Organization or EPFO extends the UAN activation and Aadhaar seeding deadline to Jan 15th for employment-linked incentive scheme. Aakash Chaudhry Sparkl Edventure secures a $4 million seed funding from guess who? Zomato CEO Deepinder Goyal and Zerodha CEO Nithin Kamath. And it's end of the year. Swiggy has come out with what India ordered the most, and Biryani reigns supreme as the most popular dish for the 9th consecutive year. And if you are planning a holiday a little late in the season, then there are 7 countries where Indians can visit visa-free. We'll tell you all about it. A top story this morning, Adani Defence Systems and Technologies Limited has signed an agreement to acquire 85.8% stake in Airworks India, one of the country's leading aircraft maintenance companies, for an enterprise value of 400 crore rupees. Now, this acquisition is a major boost for India's maintenance, repair and overhaul MRO sector, bringing Airworks' extensive network of operations across 35 cities and a workforce of over 1,300 people under the Adani Enterprises umbrella. With services ranging from line maintenance and heavy checks to base maintenance for narrow-body and turboprop aircraft, Airworks is also a key player in defense MRO, having worked on aircraft used by the Indian Navy as well as the Indian Air Force. Now remember, MRO becomes an extensive and a well-integrated part in India's aviation story simply because MRO concerns is what has driven out many airlines from Indian skies. Moving on, as we approach 2025, well, India's aviation sector is poised for a dynamic year marked by mega mergers, fleet expansions and the opening of new airports. However, persistent supply chain challenges remain a looming concern. Looking ahead into 2025, all eyes are on new airline takeoffs, updates to pilot fatigue norms and efforts to cut carbon emissions. Looking back at 2024, the industry witnessed 2 airlines shutting operations, one on the brink of liquidation, soaring aircraft orders and record-breaking domestic passenger numbers surpassing 5 lakh in a single day, not once but twice. But challenges lingered in 2024, from fluctuating airfares and almost 1,000, exactly 999 hoax bomb threats, to tragic incidents like trainer aircraft crashes and the deadly roof collapse at Delhi's Terminal 1 airport. A year of highs and lows for Indian aviation as it prepares for hopefully a smoother, turbulent-free journey ahead. Meanwhile, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or TRAI, has released its subscription data for the month of October 2024, showing a decline this time of 33 lakh active subscribers nationwide. As of October 31st, the total number of telephone subscribers, including wireless and wireline, stood at 1.18 million. reflecting a monthly drop of 0.21%. Both urban and rural segments saw reductions, with urban subscriptions slipping to 660 million and rural subscriptions declining to about 527.8 million. The broadband sector also faced a marginal dip, with total subscribers falling from 944.4 million in September to 941.47 million in the month of October. And in a development on the economic front, the government of India has signed a major agreement with the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, for $500 million loan aimed at supporting India's green and sustainable infrastructure projects. This loan, backed by a sovereign guarantee, will be channeled through the India Infrastructure Finance Company Limited, or IIFCL, and is designated to boost the country's climate commitments. In other corporate news, Kalyani Investment Company, a promoter group entity of Bharat Forge, has reached a settlement with SEBI regarding the alleged violation of disclosure norms, agreeing to pay 1.12 crore rupees as settlement fee. Kalyani Investment Company Limited, a publicly listed entity, is part of the Kalyani Group, which has a market value exceeding $2.5 billion. The settlement was reached after KICL proposed to resolve the case without admitting or denying the facts and legal conclusions in accordance with SEBI's settlement regulations. And moving to news which will impact your wallet, your savings and your investments, the Employees Provident Fund Organization, or EPFO, has extended the deadline for UAN, unique account number activation, and the seeding of bank accounts with Aadhaar to avail benefits under the Employment Linked Incentive Scheme. The new deadline is now set for Jan 15, 2025, providing workers with additional time to complete the necessary formalities. Now, this extension by EPFO follows an earlier deadline of December 15th, which was further postponed after the EPFO issued a circular last week on December 20th. EdTech major Aakash Institute and its founder Aakash Chaudhry have now secured backing from prominent consumer tech billionaires Zomato CEO Deepinder Goyal and Zerodha CEO Nithin Kamath for his new venture Sparkl Edventure. According to a report, Kamath's Rain Matter Fund, which focuses on fintech and sustainability, along with Goyal, is participating in a $4 million seed funding round for the venture, with other high-profile investors expected to join soon. And what did you eat in the year 2024? Well, even if you don't tell us that, we have a report from Swiggy. Every year, as a ritual, Swiggy in the end of December releases a report on what India ate the most. Well, no surprises if you are one of those Swiggy customers who ordered biryani most of the time. Well, biryani remains India's undisputed culinary champion, retaining its crown as the most popular dish for the 9th consecutive year. According to Swiggy's latest report, a staggering 83 million orders were placed for biryani in the year 2024. What does this average to? This averages to about 158 orders of biryani per minute. The enduring love for this iconic dish continues to dominate food trends across the country. In second place, dosa remained a strong favorite, with 23 million orders, solidifying its status as a staple of Indian cuisine. What we didn't mention was that the favorite midnight snack for India all of 2024 happened to be the humble burger. Well, moving on. With a growing interest in international travel, Indian passport holders can now explore a variety of destinations without the need for a visa. 7 countries offer visa-free access, and many of these countries could perhaps be on your radar. And if you are one of those who has not yet planned your travel but do have some money to splurge on air tickets and soaring prices of air tickets, that is, as well as expensive hotels, then these 7 destinations could perhaps be on your radar to plan a late travel where you don't need access, you just need the Indian passport. First up on the list is Kazakhstan, known for its stunning natural landscapes like the Charin Canyon and Kolsai lakes. So Kazakhstan happens to be one of those countries that you could visit without a valid visa but with a valid Indian passport. Next up is Malaysia. Indians can stay for up to 30 days with visa-free access until December 31st, 2026 now. This has been revised from the earlier deadline of 2024, but Malaysia now offers Indians to stay for 30 days without applying for any visa, this time up until December 31st, 2026. And if adventure happens to be on your bucket list, then explore Africa, Kenya. It requires an electronic travel authorization or ETA, perfect for wildlife safaris in the Masai Mara. Next up is Thailand, famous for its beaches, nightlife and budget-friendly holidays. Thailand continues to invite Indians to explore the island country without applying for a visa. All you need is a valid Indian passport. And staying with Asia, India's neighborhood Sri Lanka, a short, affordable gateway with beaches, tea gardens and ancient ruins. Sri Lanka is inviting Indians to just come with the passport, no need for a visa. And if you want to fly a little longer, then another destination that could be on your radar is Mauritius. Ideal for honeymooners, offering 90 days of visa-free stay with luxury resorts. And for the adventurer and the wanderlust in you, the last of the 7 that we've picked for you is Dominica, a nature lover's paradise with a 6-month visa-free stay option for Indians looking at traveling abroad this festive season. With that, it's time for us to slip into a very short break. But on the other side, all the stocks that happen to be in the news today and whether they should be on your trading radar. I'll be joined by Amardeep Singh after this very short break. Stay tuned to Newsline Live.
बॉन्जूर मैडम,
आज बड़े फ्रेंच बन रहे हो? हाँ?
याद है 10 साल पहले मैंने कहा था आई विल टेक यू टू पेरिस।
पेरिस नहीं, पेरी। तुम्हारा प्रोनाउंसिएशन भी ना तुम्हारे इरादे की तरह।
मैडम, इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते हैं, टेक ऑफ करते हैं।
SBI लाइफ स्मार्ट प्लैटिना सुप्रीम के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे। SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए।
From the highlands of Afghanistan to the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Africa, to street battles in Mosul, the AK-47 has dominated every conflict. But what if it could be made even better? Enter the Triple-S Defence P-72, India's answer to the AK-47. So how good is it? Let's find out.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
Challenge is part of business.
Success to me means achieving a lot with limited resources.
It is the idea of bringing the best of East and West together.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. The markets have opened just a few minutes back and, well, it seems to be a flat open this morning. Let's look at the data as the markets opened at 9:15 a.m. Like I mentioned, a flat start. We are looking at second decimal points on market open. In fact, across indices, both the large cap companies, the mid caps and the small cap, everything seems to be a flat open this morning. Let's pull up the heat map and see which are the stocks that are making some waves today. Well, you've got a mixed bag again. HDFC had a stupendous rally yesterday, but the stock has opened a little in the red this morning. A mixed bag from the banking and financial services, some green, some red. Similar story playing out in the IT sector as well. TCS has had a stronger opening, up about 0.35%. Infosys up 0.14%, but HCL Tech and Wipro both in the green this morning. A bit of a Santa Claus rally, or too early to say, we don't know. For the Reliance Industry stock, Reliance Industry is up 0.27% today. Amardev Singh joins me this morning. Amar, good morning. What do you make of a muted start for the Indian markets this morning?
Yeah, I would say that markets are still trying to digest the correction which we have witnessed. But yesterday, comparatively, I would say was a good day. Wherein we did witness some sort of pullback across the heavyweights, across sectors. So that's what is helping the markets. But we need to be, I would say, definitely we need to be cautious. And also, no doubt that the US markets and the global cues have also helped, because if you look at the NASDAQ, then we've seen positive momentum. We look at the Dow Jones, also we've seen some positive momentum. So I think those factors are definitely helping our markets. And I would say, and we are approaching the end of the this calendar year, so there would be some light trading. The other aspect is that India VIX continues to cool off and is within very normal range. So that's definitely a positive, despite the sharp correction which we have witnessed. So that clearly tells us that the markets have matured also, and also markets and investors are now taking things in their stride, that markets will be the way they are. So currently, I would say Friday's low should act as very important support for Nifty. And for Reliance, 1200 should act as very important support zone for Reliance, because breaching that level could mean that there could be further sell-off happening there. So I think that's a level definitely to watch out for.
All right, well, that is Reliance. Let's move on to some stocks, Samar, which are in news today. Let's begin with Adani Enterprises, which happens to be in news because of its acquisition of Airworks, India's largest private aviation maintenance, repair and overhaul or MRO service firm, for an enterprise value of 400 crore rupees. Remember, the group already has interest in airport infrastructure in India's growing aviation market. So Adani Enterprises on your radar today, and is this news of Adani infusing 400 crore rupees for the MRO space, is that likely to bring some cheer to the Adani Enterprises stock today? That is one of the stocks that we will discuss with Amardev Singh, who will just join us back shortly. We will also look at the impact of this news item of Adani Enterprises getting into the aviation sector through a 400 crore rupee infusion into the MRO space, and what this will do to the stocks of Interglobe Aviation, the parent company of Indigo, as well as SpiceJet stocks this morning. Well, let's look at the trading chart of Adani Enterprises this morning. Adani Enterprises year to date has given a decline to shareholders, and a decline of almost 20% when you talk about this particular calendar year. We've seen Adani Enterprises reach a high of about 3,600 rupees per share on the 3rd of June earlier this year, but since then the Adani stock has been mostly in a downward decline, and of course we saw the sharpest correction happen on the 18th and 19th of November. On the trading screen this morning, Adani Enterprises is trading at 2,350 odd levels. Amardev Singh is back with us. The news of Adani getting into the MRO space, Amardev Singh, is this going to bring some cheer to investors in the Adani Enterprises stock?
I would say that really wouldn't matter much for Adani Enterprises. Yes, that's definitely a sort of integration which they are looking at. But how much of that is really going to impact? Because the acquisition size also, if you look at that's peanuts as compared to the sort of investments which they do. But yes, to some extent. But overall, Adani Group stocks, if you see, they've been hit by various sorts of news flows over the last couple of years, which has impacted them. And if you look at Adani Enterprises right now, it's around 2350. It did recently hit a low of 2025 on 22nd of November, but has pulled back from those levels. So currently, I would say that 2550, 2560, that's a zone of resistance where Adani Enterprises could meet with some sort of resistance. Looking at it from a technical perspective, the recent lows definitely seems to be a short-term bottom about Adani Enterprises. So till the time we don't see a collapse or a major sell-off happening across the board, not only in the domestic markets but internationally, this low should hold for Adani Enterprises. And those who are getting into the stock or wish to get into the stock, they have to be prepared for increased volatility because the stock has been displaying a lot of volatility over the past couple of years.
All right, expect volatility in the Adani Enterprises stock, and of course enough and more news triggers domestically and internationally that have been impacting the stock for a couple of years now. Staying with the aviation space, because that's how we entered this conversation. Amar, I want your views on Indigo, Interglobe Aviation and SpiceJet. Now, remember, MRO was one of the major issues in the servicing of the Pratt & Whitney engines when Go First eventually had to land forever. And nothing seems to have improved on the MRO front. But is this news of Adani getting into the MRO space likely to impact Interglobe Aviation stocks and SpiceJet stocks?
So if I look at Indigo in particular, see, the stock has had a significant rally. Currently it's around 4450 odd levels or so. And the stock is, we need to understand is that the stock has rallied. If I look at year till date, the stock is up by more than 50%. if I look at the stock from a longer term perspective, the stock has delivered, and also this sector is there to grow, and Indigo definitely is a major player in this sector. We also having the likes of Air India and the Vistara merger. So those also having some impact, but Indigo still has a major share, and also in terms of the timeliness, it stands out. So I think that definitely is helping, because when people travel by air, they always prefer that time is of essence. That's the reason they're traveling by. Otherwise, they would prefer traveling by train.
Right.
So somewhere or the other, that discipline or that maintenance or management of time is something which is very important and essential. And growth is definitely for this sector. I won't say that immediately there seems to be any impact or would be any impact on the Adani news from that perspective.
Okay.
So yeah.
But do you think, Amar, Indigo is perhaps the only stock which enjoys some sort of a monopolistic advantage, because it is among the only two private commercial aviation companies which are listed on the bourses, the other one of course being SpiceJet, and SpiceJet hasn't really had what one would call a stellar year 2024. So what is your view on SpiceJet?
So SpiceJet basically has its own share of challenges, and till the time they really are not able to resolve that, I won't say investors really placing much value there. And as far as you rightly said, Indigo has a pole position in terms of the aviation, and the only, I would say, challenge which could throw up for aviation stocks is crude oil prices. If we see, because right now if you see crude oil prices are trading, Brent crude is anywhere below the 72, 73 level. So crude oil prices, as long as they are trading below the 80 mark, I don't think that's much of concern. For the aviation stocks. Yes, definitely any rise in crude oil prices has an impact on their aviation fuel as well.
Right.
But so that's one major thing which is beyond the control of the aviation sector, which could always play a spoil sport. So as long as God is kind on them, I think they are doing quite well. And as far as our markets are concerned, the way Indian travelers have really taken off, be it the hospitality sector or the aviation sector, Indigo is there to stay, and it's a good opportunity. But again, from a longer term perspective, and also buying in an SIP mode is always a better idea rather than going all out at any specific price.
All right, well, let's move on to another news item and a news story developing, which is by way of Wipro. Wipro now gets a new global chief marketing officer in Ranjita Ghosh. Previously, Ghosh was the head of marketing for Wipro's Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa region. Her role as global CMO begins from the 1st of February 2025, and she will report to Wipro's chief of technology and strategy, Harish Shetty. Will this move the Wipro stock? Is this something which acts as a market trigger, Amar, the appointment of a new global CMO?
So if I look at Wipro in particular, see, IT stocks have done quite well. If I look at, I'll give you just a perspective. The Dow Jones was month till date was down almost 4%, whereas the Nasdaq was up by almost, for the month till this month, December is up by almost 3.5%. So that clearly tells us that IT stocks have been very strong and firm, not only in the US but in India as well, and that's being reflected in Wipro as well. So if I go back to Wipro charts from a shorter term perspective, the stock has rallied, because from almost May of last year, the stock was somewhere around 175, 180 levels. The stock made a recent high of 320, currently it's around here in 7, but still it's a long way from its all-time highs. So all-time high was somewhere around the 370 mark in October of 2021. So effectively what it tells me that investors have somewhat bought into Wipro in terms of the way the IT sector has performed, and also the receding fears of Donald Trump coming back and having a significant negative impact on the Indian IT sector. I think that's, to a certain extent, investors, markets have all factored in until something unexpected happens. But as far as Wipro is concerned, it still has a long way to go, because if I look at some of the other IT stocks like TCS, so TCS isn't very far off from its all-time highs. If I look at Infosys for that matter, so Infosys also isn't really it's almost close to its all-time high. So Wipro is an exception. It's fairly off from its all-time high. So with the new management coming into play, let's hope for the best and see if there can be any significant impact on that, because the impact is always slow and then it magnifies. So we'll have to wait and watch.
All right, impact likely to be slow before it magnifies. Remember, for Wipro or for any IT company, a marketing lead obviously becomes a relevant role to shore up more business. But moving on, Amar, let's look at TVS Motor Company. TVS Motors has completed the acquisition of DriveX, with its holding now increased to 87.38% or so. Now, DriveX is a platform to buy and sell used two-wheelers. So let's understand, Amar, from you, how this development could impact the TVS Motor stock.
So if we look at TVS per se, so see, I would say all companies now are basically, beat any sector if you take, they're all trying digital platforms, they're all trying to reach out and be more approachable in that sense, rather than I would say clients or customers going to them. If they can reach out to the customers, because that opens a different set of opportunities altogether, which remains unexplored by many of these companies. So definitely that's a positive step, but we'll have to, so it's, you can say, baby steps. We'll have to see how that really pans out, because once it gets into a full function, and we'll have to watch at least for a couple of quarters, then we get a really sense of how that's picking up. As far as TVS Motors is concerned, again, I would say this is a stock which has been doing quite well, but of late we've seen some sharp correction, and that's not only in this stock, it's across the board. You look at Tata Motors, what's the way the stock has corrected, Bajaj and all that. So we've seen a sharp correction post slowdown in numbers, sales numbers for the automobile sector. But again, this is one stock which is on, our company, you can say, which is on strong foundation. Currently it's around 2374, 2300 levels, 2370 odd levels. So yeah, this is one stock one can look at. Again, from a longer term perspective, you need to look at these stocks, because the markets where they are, if there's any further correction, then we could witness some further correction in these stocks as well.
Right.
So more again from a stock SIP mode, this is one can look at on any corrections.
All right, look at the stock on corrections. Remember, the TVS Motor Company stock has already delivered about 17% growth year to date. And moving on now to Bharat Forge. The company is planning to infuse $64.5 million into its US subsidiary, Bharat Forge America Inc. Let's look at this stock on the price charts. The stock is up about 50% in this calendar year. Still on your radar, Amar, what should one do with the Bharat Forge stock?
So if I look at Bharat Forge, so Bharat Forge in particularly has witnessed some sort of correction, significant correction, I would say, from almost 1800 levels. Currently it's around 1300 odd or so, and the stock has got very strong support coming around the 1200 1250 zone. So, and the stock, if you look at, has corrected by almost 500, so roughly it's around 30% correction is there from the recent all-time highs. I would say that was in June of 2024. Third week of June 2024. So the stock has corrected. The stock is inching higher, trying to form a base. And the company is also into diversification. If you look at the performance of the company in that sense, so somewhere or the other, Bharat Forge clearly is into I would say the auto space, and they are trying to move into other aspects as well. If you look at the performance sales have been down for the September quarter. However, profit was up comparatively, but overall markets are not very much, I would say, enthused at right now, because what we are seeing is any pullback is being used as a exiting opportunity. But the stock, as I said, has got very strong support around the 1200 1250 levels. There, one can look at some sort of buying opportunity.
Buying opportunity at a 1200 rupees support price. Moving on now to the real estate sector. Well, real estate players Prestige Group, RC Group and Valor Estate are reportedly in advanced talks to undertake one of the largest cluster redevelopment projects of public housing colonies in Mumbai. Prestige on your radar, Amar, how do you see this stock faring?
If I look at the real estate stock in particular, and if I look at the Prestige, which you mentioned, so real estate has, I would say, has taken off quite well. And if I look at some of these stocks, for example, Prestige right now, it is currently trading around the 1700 levels or so, 1750, 60 odd levels. Trend is strong. What we are seeing here is that the stock has corrected from 2100, almost 2100 levels. And to recent low of almost 1500, currently it's around 1750. So the stock, see, first I'll just tell you that if you look at Prestige or for that matter other real estate stocks, we've seen some very positive movement happening there in terms of the demand for luxury segments. That's one. And also if you look at the company's performance also has been good in terms of sales being significantly higher as compared to the September sales quarter as compared to the June. Or profitability, there was a dip on the basis of increased expenditure. So having said that, if I look at the stock PE, that's significantly higher as compared to most of the stocks or the median of the company. So that's one cause of concern. But at the same time, on the flip side, it also tells that investors are willing to pay a higher PE for the stock in expectations or anticipations of better financial performance going forward.
Right.
As far as this stock is concerned, yes, it's a good stock to have in its portfolio. But on corrections, right now, upside seems to be capped around the 1850, 1900 levels, whereas downside, the stock is strongly supported around the 1550, 1600 zone.
1550, 1600 zone if you want to enter the stock. Well, let's move to related sector with the real estate, and this comes by way of cement stocks. Well, Ultratech, after acquiring majority stake in India Cements, saw an upswing in price movement yesterday. Amar, is this likely to continue in today's trading session as well? And just talk to us about both India Cements and Ultratech. How do they fare on your screens today?
First talking about Ultratech. See, Ultratech, I would say has really done quite well. Has rewarded shareholders quite well. And if I look at Ultratech technically, and so it seems to be losing some sort of momentum. So on the upside, 12,000 countries from 11,400 odd levels. Upside 12,000, 12,200. That's a very strong zone of resistance. Whereas on the downside, somewhere around the 10,500, 1,000 points lower is very strong support. So it seems to be trading in a range as far as the risk reward ratio that isn't too much favorable at the current levels. And looking at the company perspective, the company has been faring quite well, but over the last the September quarters, definitely they were not encouraging as compared to the June quarters in terms of sales and profitability. So one needs to understand that infrastructure companies, infrastructure projects, and those who are into infrastructure, be it steel or cement, they are companies which take time to grow, which have a comparatively slower growth rate, just like you have at the FMCG sector, because they are very closely tied to the overall economy, which we are seeing.
Right.
The economy has definitely slowed down. So I think those are concerns. Again, this is one stock on corrections one can look at as a buying opportunity or keeping it on its portfolio. But again, as an SIP mode, always if you're looking at a 5 to 10 year period in stocks.
All right, SIP mode for the Ultratech cement. Well, what about India Cements? How do you see the movement on India Cements?
So if I look at India Cements, see, the India Cement has bounced back recently also, and the stock has been witnessing a lot of, I would say, movement or volatility, because recently, as recent as June, the stock was trading around 170 and it's more than doubled. Currently, it's around 370 odd levels, very close that distance between its all-time high of 385. So clearly, the stock has witnessed some sort of buying interest, and recently also the stock has picked up. So towards 390, 380, 390, that's a zone of resistance for the stock, because that's where the stock had hit a all-time high in August. So somewhere or the other, that's going to act as a zone of resistance, 380, 390. So those who are long, they can look at booking profits. I wouldn't say enter at the current levels. And again, it's displaying a similar pattern as to what we talked about Ultratech Cement.
So book profits at 380 odd levels is the word coming in from Amardev Singh. Amar, thank you so much for joining us on the eve of Christmas, and season's greetings from all of us at News9 to you. Have a great Christmas and a happy New Year.
Thank you, and wishing you and your viewers the same.
Thanks. And with that, let's quickly slip into the global headlines in news today before we take a break and bring all those stories to you. First up, tech stocks push Wall Street higher as Dow, S&P 500 and Nasdaq see gains. Bitcoin now falls below the $94,000 mark as Fed Chair Powell's comments boost market uncertainty about cryptocurrency. Tesla chief Elon Musk calls the Federal Reserve absurdly overstaffed amid interest rate concerns. Honda and Nissan discuss potential merger to create the world's third largest car company. Meanwhile, in Germany, Volkswagen shares drop 3% as investors worry about union deal, job cuts and the overall financial outlook. Eli Lilly's Mounjaro obesity drug to be available on UK's NHS starting March 2025. Meanwhile, Nordstrom set to go private in a $4 billion deal led by founding family and Mexican retailer. Donald Trump hints at opposing US TikTok ban, citing its role in connecting with younger voters. All these stories on the other side of Morning Brief at 9.
Bonjour, मैम।
आज बड़े फ्रेंच बन रहे हो? हाँ?
याद है 10 साल पहले मैंने कहा था I will take you to Paris।
पेरिस नहीं, पैरी। तुम्हारा प्रोनाउंसिएशन भी ना तुम्हारे इरादे की तरह।
मैडम, इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते हैं, टेक ऑफ करते हैं।
SBI लाइफ स्मार्ट प्लैटिना सुप्रीम के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे। SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए।
In the chaos of battle, one weapon stands as a silent reaper of the battlefield. It can kill at ranges of over 3 kilometers. Just one precise shot can shatter enemy lines, disrupt entire formations, and tip the scales of war. This is a weapon born in Bharat, and it's crafted to take on the best in the world. This is the Adani Defence Sabre, and you're watching Guns of India.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and time now to look at the global stories in news today. Wall Street ended higher on Monday with gains from tech stocks pushing the major indices up. The Dow rose slightly, the S&P 500 gained more than 0.7%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq added nearly 1%. Take a look.
Wall Street's main indexes closed higher on Monday, thanks to gains in many of the Magnificent Seven tech stocks. The Dow ticked up more than 0.1%, the S&P 500 added more than 0.7, and the Nasdaq rose nearly 1%. Meta Platforms, Nvidia, and Tesla all closed higher, with Google parent Alphabet also in positive territory. And that could all bode well for a so-called Santa Claus rally, says Mike Muscio, president of FBB Capital Partners.
I think one of the causes of this every year is let's go with some general optimism for a new year and new resolutions, prosperous new year for everybody. At the same time, there's probably a little bit of window dressing happening on the ends of the calendar year where people are positioning their portfolios to own a little bit more of some things, a little bit less of others. And if if that window dressing is leading you into big cap stocks, then, that are weighted a little bit more in the indices, you'd expect to see a little bit of a pop.
Among other individual movers, shares of Qualcomm gained 3.5% after a jury found its central processors are properly licensed under an agreement with UK-based ARM Holdings. Shares of ARM, which has vowed to seek a fresh trial, fell. Walmart shares tumbled 2% after the U.S. consumer finance watchdog accused the retail giant and workforce payments company Branch Messenger of forcing more than 1 million delivery drivers into using accounts that cost them more than $10 million in junk fees. And shares of Eli Lilly gained 3.7% after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the drug maker's weight loss treatment, Zepbound, for obstructive sleep apnea.
Well, a Santa Claus rally there for tech stocks, but a Krampus decline for cryptocurrency. Bitcoin experienced a sharp decline, falling below the $94,000 mark, marking its fourth consecutive day of losses. The Bitcoin currency was trading at $93,637, down about 8.25%. This drop follows comments by Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, who dismissed the possibility of the U.S. Central Bank stockpiling Bitcoin, saying the Fed has no plans to hold Bitcoin reserves. Powell's hawkish stance, coupled with a more cautious outlook on interest rates for 2025, spooked investors. Other cryptocurrencies also suffered, with Ethereum dropping 12% and altcoins such as XRP and BNB seeing losses of up to 22%. And in a recent post on social media platform X, tech billionaire Elon Musk targeted the Federal Reserve, calling it, and I quote, absurdly overstaffed, unquote. His comments come in response to a discussion about the Fed's recent interest rate cut and cautious outlook for the future rate reduction cycle. Musk, known for his proactive takes on government policies, suggested the Fed could reduce headcount using technology. This sparked a flurry of social media reactions, with users agreeing that automation could streamline government operations. The controversy around the Fed also attracted attention from President-elect Donald Trump, who's been critical of the central bank and its leadership under Jerome Powell, calling the Fed's operations inefficient in the past. Meanwhile, Japan's Honda and Nissan are in talks about a potential merger, a move that could reshape the global auto industry. The deal would create the world's third largest car group behind Toyota and Volkswagen. The company aims to leverage resources to tackle competition, especially from Chinese electric vehicle makers. The two firms, along with Mitsubishi Motors, have signed a memorandum of understanding to start discussions on integrating their business under a new holding company.
A historic pivot for Japan's auto industry is underway. Honda and Nissan announced on Monday that they have started talks towards a potential merger. The move underlines the threat Chinese EV makers now pose to some of the world's heavyweight car makers. The integration would create the world's third largest auto group by vehicle sales after Toyota and Volkswagen, and would also give Nissan and Honda a chance to share resources in the face of intense competition. The companies also announced that smaller Mitsubishi, in which Nissan is top shareholder, was also considering joining. The chief executives of all three held a press conference in Tokyo. Honda CEO Toshihiro Mibe.
There is a rise of Chinese power and emerging forces, and the structure of the automobile industry is changing. What this means is that I believe that the value itself in terms of automobiles and mobility will change. Ultimately, we would like to lead the world once again. And you can think that today's discussion is the first step in consideration towards that direction.
Honda is Japan's second largest automaker and Nissan is its number 3. A deal would mark the biggest reshaping in the global auto industry since Fiat Chrysler and PSA merged in 2021 to create Stellantis. The two companies said they'd aim to wrap up talks around June 2025 and then set up a holding company by August 2026. Honda has a market capitalization of more than $40 billion, while Nissan is valued at about $10 billion. Honda said it will appoint the majority of the holding company's board. In a separate online press conference with the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan on Monday, former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn gave his reaction to the news. He said he did not believe the Honda-Nissan alliance would be successful and that the two automakers were not complementary. Ghosn is wanted as a fugitive in Japan for jumping bail and fleeing to Lebanon. His 2018 arrest for financial wrongdoing threw Nissan into crisis.
All right, let's stay with the auto sector and shift base to Germany, where Volkswagen shares fell 3% as investors grapple with the implications of a deal with unions. The agreement involves major cost-cutting measures, including over 35,000 future job cuts, but without any immediate layoffs. Take a look.
Investors on Monday struggled to digest a deal struck between Volkswagen management and unions. The carmaker's shares were down 3% in afternoon trading. Analysts cited uncertainty about the cost-cutting deal struck with unions, as well as likely headwinds in 2025. On Friday, an agreement was hailed by unions as a Christmas miracle. They'd been locked in talks with VW bosses since September over potential job cuts and plant closures. The union IG Metall said it had reached an agreement with VW management for more than 35,000 future job cuts and a reduction of production by almost a quarter, but without immediate plant closures or layoffs. Some analysts say the deal fell short of management's initial ambitions and market expectations. They added that it also lacked a sense of urgency. The automaker employs nearly 300,000 people in Germany. It says declining car sales have led to overcapacity that they're having to deal with. Analysts also said they need to understand how VW's management intends to achieve its planned cost cuts of over $15 billion a year. In early December, nearly 100,000 employees went on strike. That was after management rejected a union proposal that included reducing dividend payments and cutting some bonuses. VW's earnings for next year may also be under threat from weak demand in China and potential tariffs from the US. The company's shares are down more than 20% this year and are trading around their 2010 levels.
Moving on, Eli Lilly's obesity drug Mounjaro will be available on the UK's National Health Service or NHS starting March 2025. Now remember, Mounjaro has shown promising results with patients losing an average of 23% of their body weight in clinical trials. Here's more.
Eli Lilly's obesity drug Mounjaro will be available through Britain's state health system for some patients from March 2025. It comes after the country's drugs cost effectiveness watchdog gave its blessing on Monday. Mounjaro launched in Britain in February, but has been available only for those paying privately. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence is recommending Mounjaro alongside diet and exercise changes. That will be for people with at least one weight-related condition, such as heart disease or type 2 diabetes, and a body mass index of more than 35. The eligibility guidelines are the same as those issued for Wegovy, the obesity medication made by rival drug maker Novo Nordisk. Mounjaro is a weekly injection and has led to an average weight loss of nearly 23% in clinical trials.
Meanwhile, US President-elect Donald Trump hinted at opposing a potential US ban on TikTok, suggesting the app has been key to his outreach with younger voters. Speaking in Phoenix, Trump discussed the app's record-breaking engagement during his campaign, suggesting that he may work to keep TikTok operational in the US despite national security concerns. Important to point out, this comes just days after SoftBank pledged to invest $100 billion in the US. Remember, SoftBank owns over 20% in TikTok's parent company, ByteDance.
The highest vote ever for a Republican candidate. We won by 36 points with young people. That never happens. A Republican loses by 36 or 40. So I'm going to have to start thinking about TikTok. I think we're going to have to start thinking. Because, you know, we did go on TikTok and we had a great response with billions of views, billions and billions of views. They brought me a chart, and it was a record, and it was so beautiful to see. And as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while, you know.
Well, that's all we have for you on Morning Brief at 9 this Tuesday morning. News and updates will continue in just a couple of minutes as Yash Goyal brings you the latest at 10 a.m. Keep watching News 9 Live.
I will take you to Paris.
Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तक.
मैडम इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते हैं, टेक ऑफ करते हैं.
SBI लाइफ स्मार्ट प्लैटिना सुप्रीम के गारंटीड रिटर्न से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए.
Challenge is part of business.
Success to me means achieving a lot with limited resources.
It is the idea of bringing the best of East and West together.